How's it going, everyone? It's Riley's Redzone, and welcome to another weekly edition of NFL Picks. We're back where it all began in the original studio of back in the day, so we're looking forward to what is up next in the NFL season. So, as usual, we're going to select who I believe wins each game, as well as this week we have a couple of guest pickers as well. We just select who will win the game straight up. I'm going to mention spreads for who's the favorite, but bottom line, it's pick 'em. So quick a recap from last week. I went 12-4, one of my better weeks in the season, bringing me up to 139 and 85 on the year, as well as our guest picker Caitlin went 11-5. Pretty solid week for her as well. Most of our guest pickers have done really well on a week-to-week basis. So as you can see the standings there, it's going to be interesting. We're going to try to get everyone back for that last week as well. So it's a tight race, but up for the challenge this week, we got another duo. This week we have Pearce and Taylor, who have both given me their selections as they will try to get the picks right ahead of me for this week. But let's jump right into what this week's going to be. We're getting some extra football on days of the week we usually wouldn't, and we're getting a lot more games at odd times, so it spreads out the schedule. But as usual, we have a Thursday night matchup, starting with the Denver Broncos and the Los Angeles Chargers. The Broncos seem to be pretty legit this year. They get a big win last week over the Colts. Bo Nix is playing pretty well offensively, that he's doing enough for them to even be a capable contender when it gets to the playoffs. They're looking like they're really in a potential driver's seat for a playoff spot there. Their defense is playing incredible. Meanwhile, the Chargers, they kind of just couldn't do much against the Bucs last week, but overall, I think this is a bounce back for them. I will say I'm shocked that they're favored by 2.5 points, but I like this opportunity for Justin Herbert, Jim Harbaugh, and all of them to get a bounce back week. I'm taking Los Angeles, and so does both Pearce and Taylor. They both think that the Chargers are going to win, so we have ourselves a sweep to start off this video, but that won't last too long. As next we have the Texans and the Chiefs, a little Saturday action. The Chiefs, the big question is, what's going on with Patrick Mahomes? Is he going to be healthy? Is he not? I don't know. Either way, the last line I saw here, Chiefs are favored by 3, but regardless, if Patrick Mahomes plays or not, I'm going to echo what I've said all season. I'm not concerned if the Chiefs drop a game, but the thing is I believe that they are not the strongest we've ever seen them right now. And the Texans, I've said numerous times, are just not quite living up to what I thought they would. But I think as they get towards playoff time, they're going to pick up a little momentum. CJ Stroud's going to put it all together. So as 3-point underdogs, give me the Houston Texans to pull off the upset. Meanwhile, Pearce and Taylor both think the Chiefs got it in the bag either way. It would be Carson Wentz if Mahomes can't go. But either way, they like Kansas City. I'm going with the Texans. Steelers, Ravens. Ravens are 6-point favorites. The Steelers have had a great season, but they weren't able to keep up with the Eagles last week. And I think that's going to be the story when we get into the playoffs, too. That they are a solid football team. Defensively, they're great. Can they get it done offensively? Russell Wilson has shown signs at times, but not consistently. The Ravens, to me, are one of the better teams still out there. I mean, even when they drop some games, I believe that they are going to be a top-tier contender in the playoffs. And so I like them at home as 6-point favorites to get the victory here. And Pearce agrees with me, but Taylor thinks the Steelers win, so he's got Pittsburgh in that matchup. So that's a potential swap right there in the standings. Giants, Falcons, a lot of storylines here. It sounds like Drew Lock's going to be the guy for New York. That's what it is. I still have the Giants right at the bottom there. I mean, they just got absolutely destroyed by the Ravens last week, but they just haven't been able to get much to go this season, it really appears. Meanwhile, the Falcons, obviously big storyline, changing to Michael Penix. It feels like a change that maybe needed to be done. I mean, Kirk just has not been playing well over the last month or so, and it's tough because this is a situation where the Falcons are in potential playoff contention. Are you going to put all that on the rookie? They are going to, and so that's a big task for Michael Penix, but with all the experience he had in college, they're 8-point favorites here, which maybe seems a little large to me, and this could be the perfect sneak attack for the Giants, but on paper, I got to go with the Falcons. I think change is usually a good thing, and that's what Pearce and Taylor think as well. So it's a sweep that we're all going Atlanta in that game. Lions, Bears. Let's start with the Lions. They are now decimated with injuries, specifically on the defensive side of the ball, but as well as having one of your tandem running backs out in David Montgomery. That is a huge blow, and I don't think that's going to affect them this week when you're playing Chicago, but in the playoff scheme of things, yeah, I think down the road that could cause some issues. It's maybe they were the clear favorite in the NFC, and maybe that's not quite the same anymore. But Chicago just can't seem to do anything against anyone. I mean, last week against Minnesota, they just looked poor. Caleb Williams did not look like an NFL quarterback, and I don't think it's all his fault that they threw him into the fire. It appears is the thing that I think a lot of analysts have talked about this week, but it's just that he's not getting better, but he has the tools that someday he could be okay, but it just seems he's not progressing, and on a week-to-week basis, I don't think Thomas Brown appears like probably will be the guy next year, which is tough for Caleb as well, because then you're looking at already having your third guy to work with going into your second year. That's tough, but at least I think Thomas Brown is a gutsy play caller, which could be into benefit against a team like Detroit here, but I got to go with the Lions. They're 6.5-point favorites, so do the other two. That's a sweep as well. And we got Cardinals and Panthers. Cardinals with Kyler Murray. They get a win last week against the Patriots that was needed. I picked against them. I have been a pretty strong advocate of the Cardinals over the last few seasons, and the big thing for me is they could put up offensive points, but can they play defense? It seems like they can at this point in the season, but the Panthers are tricky as well. I would have thought that they would have fought harder last week in their game, but they just couldn't quite do it. I think that Carolina here with Bryce Young has been playing better. Because the Cardinals won last week, I'm going to say things balance back out and that Carolina actually gets a dub in this week. So I'm taking Carolina. Pearce is taking Carolina. He is a Panthers fan. And then Taylor is going with the favorite in the Cardinals. So that could be an easy pick for Taylor for him there. But that is interesting to see in the standings. Then Rams and Jets. I mean, this is tricky. The Rams, these are opposite teams for me. And the fact that the Rams, on paper, shouldn't be as good as they are, in my opinion. They have the good quarterback, receivers, their offense, but defensively, I'm shocked that they can be as impressive as they are. Now, sometimes, yeah, they have to win a 40-point shootout against the Bills, but they last week showed that, we can hold San Francisco to single digits, and for as, maybe banged up San Francisco is, that's still impressive. Their defense is playing well, but the Jets all season have been maybe the most difficult team to predict. They did pull through last week, but every time you think that they got it, they don't, and every time you think they don't, they do. So for that reason, with 3-point underdogs, give me the New York Jets again. I said it last week, but I'm going to keep going back to that fire that they've burned me quite a lot, but I'm taking the underdog. Whenever they're the underdog, it feels like they have a little bit better chance, as crazy as that is. So I'm taking the Jets. Taylor's taking the Jets as well in an upset, but Pearce has the favorite Rams in that matchup. Then the Eagles and the Commanders. I think this is a very sneaky game. The Eagles right now could be the favorite in the NFC with the way they've been playing. They're putting it together at the right time. The Commanders were right up there at the top at the beginning of the season. Now they've slipped just a little, but they're still a solid football team, and I think you don't want to match up against them. As they're at home, they are 3-point underdogs, but give me Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders to pull off the upset here. Pearce is agreeing with me, and there's Taylor again with another favorite, just him picking the game, so that could be a couple gimmies for him if those end up turning out. So Washington is the pick for me and Pearce in that one. Then the Browns and the Bengals. The Browns and the Bengals here. The Bengals are putting it together offensively, but they still just can't do anything defensively. You allow almost 30 points to the Titans, who have been one of the worst offenses in the league this season. Meanwhile, the Browns, they're going to switch to DTR at this point. The Jameis Winston experiment was very fun, but it appears that the ride has been closed. And so with that, I think the Bengals, they're fighting for every last scrap they can to stay in the playoff hunt. I think they keep it alive this week. Let's go with the Bengals as 7.5-point favorites. It's a sweep there, all three of us. I think Cincinnati's got the advantage. Then Titans Colts, we just talked about. The Titans are a struggling football team. They're going to make the change to Mason Rudolph this week, it appears. That's fine. I don't know. Will Levis is clearly not the guy, and I think I've talked about it, but this season, your goal for Tennessee, when you saw early it was going to be a struggle, was just to figure out, is Will Levis the guy? And I think it became pretty clear he's not. And so you're probably going to need to pick a quarterback, go get a quarterback next offseason. But then you flip to Mason Rudolph, who you know who he is, but maybe he still has a little bit of upside. Was a pretty high pick at Oklahoma State with the Steelers there. But I just think it's a whatever move. It's not really going to move the needle, and you're already so down bad in the season that it is what it is. Meanwhile, the Colts, 3.5-point favorites. Anthony Richardson, I think he's just going to sling the rock. Let's go with Indianapolis, and so do both of the guest pickers. That's a sweep. Vikings Seahawks. Now, this is the first game of the week that I've actually changed my mind a little bit, and I think it's a tricky one. The Vikings are legit. I'm going to say that because I think there's a lot of doubters out there that what they're doing isn't quite there. They are a serious Super Bowl contender, in my opinion. They're in the top tier of teams right now. I don't think you can look at what they've done and not say that. But this week against Seattle, who we think Geno is going to play, that's huge for this matchup. But potential rain in the forecast, tricky road game, team that's trying to kind of stay in the driver's seat of their playoff opportunity. I think this is a scrappy game, and I really think it is a tough one for a road team. And so I'm going to pick Seattle as the 3-point underdogs. Even though I think the Vikings are a better team, I think this could be a weather and or just kind of atmosphere game that, for this singular week, I think Seattle has the advantage. Taylor's in agreement with me there. And then Pearce will go with the Vikings in that matchup. So that'll be a fun one to watch, no doubt about it. Then the Patriots and the Bills. I almost want to pull the trigger here on a Patriots upset pick. I did last week. Drake May is getting better. This would be one of those where these two teams haven't faced off against each other this season. As odd as that may be, I would have thought by now, but they still have to play twice in the last few weeks here. But Drake May is getting better, and so I think that they win one of those two games. But I think if the Bills had already won a game against the Patriots this season, I would pick the Patriots here in a swap. But if I had to do it, I think the series will get split. I'm going to take Buffalo for this week. They're 14-point favorites. That just would seem a little crazy to go with the Patriots there, as we're all going to go with the Bills. But I'd say keep an eye out on that one. This is my almost upset of the week if I had one. If we were doing spreads, I'd definitely keep an eye out on that. I think that this is going to be an actually close game, but I think New England in a few weeks I might take at home to win that one. Jaguars and Raiders, this is a whatever game that's kind of interesting because two teams we don't really know. Mac Jones is the backup quarterback for the Jaguars. He's going. And then the Raiders, we don't know whether it's going to be Aiden O'Connell or Desmond Ridder. Ridder was not great against his former team in the Falcons this week. I don't think you feel great about that. But I don't feel good about the Jaguars. And so this is one of those where I feel balance is always key. And I think that the Jaguars have shown more fight as of late, which is why I think the Raiders will actually put something together this week as 1-point favorites. I'll take Las Vegas and probably never mind, the next game is my most hesitant selection. I'll take the Raiders here. Both of the guest pickers go with the Jaguars in an upset. Certainly a fair pick. It's literally a 1-point spread I'm seeing, and even a pick 'em at some sites. So that's a tight one. Now, the 49ers and the Dolphins. This is a game I have flipped, but because of it, I'm going to go with my gut here on this one. 1-point favorites are the Dolphins. These are two teams that obviously Mike McDaniel, coming from the 49ers coaching staff, it's going to be interesting to watch that. But both these teams have been struggling. Dolphins, just their season's a wash. So what are you playing for? Who knows? The Niners, while they've been poor offensively, they just can't get anything to go. These two teams are just kind of mid. But because of that, I think of the coaching, I'm going to lean on Kyle Shanahan over Mike McDaniel and what should be a really tight game, I imagine. I'm going to go with my gut, which is the 1-point underdogs, 49ers in this matchup. Pearce is with me there. Taylor's going with the Dolphins in that matchup. So I think it's interesting to see that all of us picked a good amount of upsets. I'm already up to 6, which is maybe the most I've even ever picked in a week. Everyone has picked at least 4 up to this point. But Taylor, it feels like, has a lot of them that he has the favorite in. And so that is something interesting to watch, I think, by the end, because he could end up just swiping some of those away. The Bucs and the Cowboys. The Cowboys, at least last week, showed some fight with Cooper Rush that, okay, they're not in that bottom of the barrel list of teams, and that was good to see. I still don't think they're much better than above average, but that was something. Meanwhile, the Bucks, Baker Mayfield, man, he's got them going, scoring like 40 points. It seems quite often, but I think I have to go with the Bucks here, although this could be interesting with the Cowboys. As only 4-point favorites, I'm a little shocked. I'll take Tampa Bay. All of us do there. That is a sweep. And to close out the week, and then it'll be a quick turnaround in the next week's video already, is the Saints and the Packers. The Saints, I believe, are going to go with Spencer Rattler. He's who finished their last game after starting Jake Haener. I like that. I think Rattler is the smarter choice. Just see what you got if you have anything, because I think you're going to be looking at a new direction of quarterback soon anyways. Meanwhile, the Packers are just a pretty good football team. I think that they are right on the border of contenders right now. They're certainly obviously in the playoffs, but the question is just whether they can get through the gauntlet of all these other teams. But if Jordan Love puts it together, they could be. So for this week, without a doubt, I'm taking the Packers as 14-point favorites here. All three of us do in the sweep to there. And then let's close out the video with a little recap of the fantasy league. It's been interesting. I made a couple roster moves this week I'm just going to bring up because I am still in contention for the title. So I picked up Michael Penix in a dynasty league by dropping Jameis Winston because he's benched, and I felt good about that. And then the perhaps storyline is I picked up Justin Herbert, who was on the free agent market. He's been dropped twice by two different teams, and ironically, I'm starting him against a guy who dropped him 2 weeks ago. So I'm taking on Cody in the second round of the winners bracket after winning in the first round. So that's going to be a tight game. And then continuing in the winners bracket is Charlie and Max. So that's the winner side, that there will be a reward for that. But then let's keep an eye out on the loser side, who's still in the battle for the punishment, which is always, dicey there. It's going to be Nick versus Andrew, and then Matthew versus Danny, who are fighting for the last spot. And so if you lose, you keep going on and playing next week in that side of the bracket. Otherwise, there's the consolation games. So some interesting things to watch there as we get close to the end of the season. But that'll do it for this week. We're nearing that holiday time of the year. We're next week probably going to go full on with that. But with that being said, I appreciate you taking the time to watch this video and hope you have a good rest of your week as we head into this holiday season. And I will see you in the next one.